We found a nice spot there, but you could also see some big publishers, Newsweek, Microsoft, eBay. What we find is it takes a lot longer to close some of those deals. But what's happening is we spent a lot of time, I don't know if Mackenzie's in the room, I saw Chris in here before. We spent a lot of time at conferences talking to publishers, talking to agencies to sort of find out what's going on in the industry. And what we're finding out, and I was just at a conference last week where I spoke with our client eBay, and we say that there's a revolution is coming. Or an evolution, revolution, however we want to call it, right? But what we're starting to see is there's always been talk from the publishing side in the US specifically about they want to start taking control again. They feel they've got all this content they're generating, it's their client, but they get a very small portion of the revenue. So there's starting to be this change within ad tech. You also start seeing the middle layer compressing. Everybody knows this, we've worked in this part of the industry. The SSPs are starting to get consolidated, they're being bought, not being as profitable as they had been. Rubicon's an example. You saw AT&T just acquired AppNexus. So revolution's coming, right? Thing is this is Roman army right here. So I say the Roman army because the Roman army to me are the DSPs right now in the industry, specifically DSPs and brands. They have all the tools they need to be successful in the battle. So a dollar comes in, they take a big piece of that dollar, they have full view of data, they have full understanding of how the customer is interacting, they're getting all the media dollars coming in, and at the end of the day, as it relates to tools in the industry, the whole industry favors, at the end of the day, the buyer, right, or the DSPs. So you've got an industry that's now very much skewed towards the buy side of the business. You then have the passive side, the sheep. And I don't mean to say it disparaging, but basically the publishers are sitting there at the end of the day and they've traditionally taken whatever has come down to them as revenue at the end of the day. You got to understand their whole world was turned over 15 years ago when they went from publishing traditional models, subscription model, selling page advertising, right, at the end of the day. And what ends up happening is that whole world changes over and they didn't move quick enough. So big companies came in, and there are some big companies that we'll talk about in a second, came in and basically said, we're going to build this space, we're going to take all the revenue out of your pocket, and at the end of the day we'll give you a little bit of what's left. So what I like to say is, you take a look at the funnel, these numbers aren't right, I was just grabbing images, but we know it's about 30 cents on the dollar that the pubs make. So money comes in on the top, and everybody now grabs a piece of the middle, right? You've got the DSPs are grabbing a piece. You've got anybody who's doing any type of matching, DMP, brand safety, any type of tools in there, all taking pennies of the dollar. When it gets down to the publisher, there's a very small amount left. Problem with the publishers is they're losing a lot of money. So I say, it's a horrible picture. The sheep's getting eviscerated. They're losing everything. Losing all, they have to develop the content, they have to pay the editors, they have to pay basically to keep their websites running. At the end of the day, they are getting destroyed, and they didn't realize it for the longest time. And they're now turning around saying, we've got to do something about it. This is where we come in. We're the doctor, right? We have solutions basically to help them fix things, but it's going to take changing the way that the industry is getting thought of, right? And when you go to a lot of these conferences, we realize what we have to do is we have to educate. It's a picture of a teacher educating. We have to educate the industry in terms of what's going on the demand side of the business, what's happening on the supply side, and sort of where that revenue is leaking out. So it's education, talking about how can supply partners or how can our publisher partners do a better job in terms of monetizing, right? We've got to give them the right tools to be effective in what they're doing. So a lot of it is, what are we building to help publishers take more control of their inventory? We need to lead from an industry perspective, and I'm very big on the idea of us leading and really telling the story of how the industry needs to change, right, overall. And then finally, I talk about paving the road. We pave the road basically to being able to get there. And that's a lot of the types of things that we're doing. So if we do everything right, we give them the tools, basically, instead of going into battle as a sheep, they now go into battle as a tank. We gave them all the tools. they're now armed to go out there. And actually, if you think of publishers and what they were doing 15 years ago, publishers made a lot of money on advertising. They kept every dollar, basically, of that. They don't have the ability to do that today. So if we set things the way the industry should be, where content is important, how you develop, how you sell advertising within your space is important, you should be able to give them the tools to be effective again. So what we're really looking at this point is market presence is critical. So where we were, for the most part, we stayed behind the scenes. We built technology and we're always behind the scenes. I think it's important when we go out into the US market now and we start talking to agencies and publishers, they need to understand who we are, they need to understand our story and how we built the ad tech sector or the ecosystem. We have to have increased visibility at events, boards, those types of things. We need to reach out to people. We have TrustX, who's a great client of ours. We built that technology, build out agency relationships, and try to get into other parts of the business, agency side, data world. Speaking engagements, which we started to do in the US at this point. We're doing publishing content. I know Kevin and his team publish. I know Rohan's been publishing. So we've got a lot of people going out and publishing in the industry right now. And then we're looking at events, basically, lunch and learns and those types of things to start bringing people in the industry together and be able to tell the stories. So, like I said, a little different than the presentation yesterday. I just want to make it a little more visual. Very exciting. I dropped my phone the first time I saw it too. All right. All right, I'll pass it over to you guys.
Clickers. I do not have as many clip art or interesting graphics, so I apologize. I didn't realize we were going down that route, but I'll keep it short because we really want this to be an interactive presentation, and we want good questions, hard questions, frustrating questions. We do not do a good enough job communicating our value prop as a sales team to the rest of the organization, so hopefully today you'll understand the challenges that we're trying to fix globally and as well as our regional markets, as well as just where the industry is going. So for Dino's market in North America, I think that's a $50 billion a year programmatic industry. In APAC, they want to guess how much that is?
5.
I wish. Little over about 2.5 on a good month, depending on whose numbers you trust. And so I've been based in APAC now for almost 10 years. And have been both on the buy side, the sell side, the publishers, the agency trading desk. And in all different ways, they've all been fighting each other, as Dino mentioned, for some tactical warfare to get money. Not even doing a good service for their advertisers or their constituents, but just getting money instead of trying to survive for $2 billion across 14 countries, spread across 2.5 to 3 billion people who are reliant on some form of programmatic technology. So the scale is quite different than the North American market, which is 325 billion. That's the size of not even half of India, and not even a third of the number of people getting internet for the first time. So I'll give you just as an example. Every quarter, 23 million new people get online for the first time in APAC, which is the same population of an Australia or Canada. So for them, internet for them isn't a laptop or computer, it's actually their mobile phone. So it is a mobile first region with very low CPM because the fill rates and the advertising that's being transacted isn't there just yet. And our focus for the past 2.5 years, 3 years when we set up the office in Singapore officially was trying to leverage what's been happening globally. And that's been moderately successful, but we found that our approach of having expensive workshops, high establishment fees, consultation, trust us, we're geniuses, wasn't really resonating with the market. It is a very ad network mobile first market, and we decided let's take a step back and start working on something that people can engage with on a tactical level, piece by piece. So instead of saying, you need to redo your entire technology stack, here's a solution from point A to point B that you don't have to spend a lot of money, or any money, to work with us on. And that's what we started off with DealPath. And for DealPath, that was launched exactly last year around this time. And APAC was the first market to actually close 2 clients in the first 6 months. What we found in those 6 months as we closed and built those type of off-the-shelf solutions is that demand activation is pretty hard to do, as well as just having your own programmatic business or having the maturity to run a programmatic business. So what we're looking for is clients and networks that at least have $170,000 of media spend going through, which isn't a whole lot of money comparatively to other markets, but that's sort of the area that we're in. It's an emerging world, and we're investing for long term. So this is the time. So what we have done and learned in the past a year or so of having these off-the-shelf solutions is revising our approach. So the supply BU has been very fantastic of arming us with what they call the Lego bricks approach, which is pre-packaged and pre-created functionality that we can now know what to price. So we're very quick to respond back to RFPs. We can tell a customer, if you want X, Y, Z, it'll cost you this much. And even one step further, we've actually created an improvement over what we released last year, which was a very basic SSP, and then giving our customers a couple of different new options, which is we refer to, we're not very good with naming, Deal Path Plus and Deal Path Basic, or Deal Path Select. And that's learnings on the supply side. And I don't want to say that was a failure. It's been a fantastic year learning and trying, and it does make our conversations a lot easier for immature markets and immature companies that they want to no longer be reliant on the Googles and Facebooks for their livelihood. But we're trying to give them a path to be mature and independent and successful. And just like children, if you're going to use that as an analogy, people don't always listen to good advice, but you have to at least keep trying over and over again. And that's a lot of my focus is doing that. Where we have been successful is some of you may have heard of MCN, which is based in Australia. And MCN is a very mature broadcaster that has huge amounts of presence in television shows, so television stations, apps, mobile sites, out-of-home screens. And they approached us last July, actually, July 4th, being our term. And they had committed to the marketplace that they were going to build a platform. And they had no idea how to build a platform, but they told the world that they're going to build it, and they're going to build it very soon. And they made us go through a very complicated, long RFP process to kick our tires. And they did it for so long that they were running out of time to actually release that platform. And us being very good at what we do, which is build something, we built something in about 10 weeks. And so we went from them checking our credibility to us actually flying out team members to Australia. So if anyone wants to move to Australia, I am working, or at least working at another similar type of client right now. So there might be some opportunities for more engagement down there. So find me if you're interested. But the main point is that if you guys look on the right, which I think is fantastic, this is actually their idea to give a quote in the press saying how fantastic we were to build a platform in 12 weeks. So while it was their point of saying, listen, a year ago we had said we were going to deliver a platform. A year later we helped them deliver that and keep that promise. But they also understood that without us they would never be able to release a platform on time, and we probably helped people kept their jobs. So I think everyone should take some pride that when people start Googling us now, especially in Southeast Asia and APAC, they're seeing quotes like this talking about us, which 2 years ago would never happen. And that's helped us leverage some other cool conversations. So from broadcasters, like I just said, I'm working on one right now that's due tomorrow, which is stressing me out, but we'll get there. Working with some talking and having long conversations with MediaCorp, which owns all of the broadcasters in Singapore. Independent trading desks and agencies are starting to come to us to talk about things like the agency deal council, as deal management council, as well as the deal path SSP. So actually I have a term sheet out that we'll probably get back in 2 or 3 days for another deal path client coming for the region. So fingers crossed that comes through. And some data providers. So given that this is a mobile first region, with the likes of Grab, which is the same thing as an Uber or Yandex in Southeast Asia, that's approaching us to figure out what they want to do with the data they're collecting on their mobile app users, as well as the likes of traditional data providers like Quantum or Comscore. And that's it. So moving on to Vaughan.
Thank you. Dobry den. I've learned one new word of Russian today, and that was Dobry den, and I hope you appreciate the effort.
That's two.
A sales guy, engineer. If you haven't done your communications training this week, I am a peach. For those of you that haven't done it yet, I suggest you get on it tomorrow. You may be coconuts. You don't know yet. We'll find out. When I was asked to talk about the view from the field, I thought of what is a field? Do we want to have a view from the field or a view of the field? Here's a view of a field. That is my joke.
Love it.
Thank you. We practiced this for a long time yesterday. People were supposed to laugh at this point. Now, when we think about sales, this is what many people think of. It's us standing on a yacht, drinking wine, cheersing everybody and being very happy and successful. The reality is, it's more like this. If you can't read it at the back. Hey Vlad, I've got a great idea for this client. Vaughan, I'm kind of busy right now. And that's closer to where the truth actually lies. We can't do any of the stuff that we do without having people like Vlad and Donna helping us out. Sales engineers help us to achieve what we can achieve, and I think it's really important that we salute that. When we think about sales, oops, wrong one. This is actually what it feels like sometimes. So it's actually like being a farmer. We're out in the field, we're tilling the ground, we're sowing some seeds of opportunity, and we're hoping that in the long run, some of those opportunities will actually grow into revenue for us. It's a lot of work, sometimes it's dirty, sometimes you get to celebrate, but most of the time it's just a lot of walking along behind a horse that sometimes shits on you. That was joke number 2, thank you. The point is that some seeds don't fall where you want them to fall. They fall into the bad ground. They fall onto the paths. You have to be careful with your seeds. Some of your seeds start to grow, but then the weather turns bad. Maybe it's not quite the right time. Maybe you're sowing them in a place where they're not going to get enough sunshine or rain. Some seeds, they start to grow, but they're kind of pointless seeds. It takes a long time for them to actually bear any fruit. Those are the conversations that we start to have that eventually turn into revenue, but sometimes, you're just going to waste a lot of effort on them. So how do we deal with that? Well, you've got to put your seeds in the right place. We need to be more targeted in what we're selling. We need to make sure that when we're selling to people, they're actually people who can buy. We need to make sure that we're qualifying these people, making sure that the deals that we're going after are actually things that are of benefit to Ivanweb as a whole. We're not trying to solve the world's entire problems. We're trying to solve very specific problems for very specific people. But if we don't try and pitch to the right people, then actually it's a lot of wasted effort. But if we get it right, everything goes well, we can all eat forever. That one didn't quite work, but I was trying to figure out a metaphor that would kind of get me over the line there. Next time. Anyway, what we have to do is watch out for storms. Water the customers who look good. When we've got a seed that's growing, we've got an idea that's actually finding some resonance with people, that's when we need to focus on that. We need to pay attention to it. When we have things like deal path working in a particular region, let's make sure that we put some effort into that and deliver on that. And I think it's really important just to shine a light on what we can do. Seeds need light to be able to grow. You need the sunshine, you need the warmth. And we need to do the same with the success that we have. Sometimes we're not the best at talking to people about what our good ideas are, what our good solutions are, and what our good successes are. So that's absolutely where we need to focus some attention. Now, some of the feedback that we get when we're talking to customers in the field is that, our story is great. They don't always want to work with us in the way that we want to be worked with. Some people don't want to pay for workshops. They don't want to. So you want us to pay so that you can sell to us? It's actually a quote that Joe received not too long ago. We don't pay for meetings with your competitors. Well, sorry, we're not them. Sometimes we're going to charge for a workshop. Sometimes maybe we won't. But the important thing is we've got to justify why we're doing it. Beeswax, they don't charge us as an establishment. It's a different product. We have to differentiate. But this is just giving you the feedback that we receive in the market, that sometimes, we're a great company to work with, sometimes we're a little bit hard. Sometimes people don't really understand exactly what they're going to get out of us. Now this is the situation that everybody kind of sees in the market today. On the one hand, we have Boris. I'm borrowing one of your whiteboard diagrams from Berlin, so forgive me if it's wrong. When we think about publishers and networks, they all work with SSPs and they all sit on that side of the equation. When we look at brands and agencies, they're working with their trading desks and their DSPs and they're sitting on this side of the equation. Underneath you've got your customer data platform, your data management platform, whatever you want to call it today. On the publisher side you've got and consent management platforms, which are now an essential part of dealing with GDPR. This middle ground is very congested. There's lots of people aiming arrows at the other side, trying to make sure they're getting the maximum amount of inventory for their budget. These guys are trying to get the maximum amount of revenue for their inventory. Now, over time, what's happening is that PowerPoint skills 101. Yay! It's the little things. It's the little things that keep me happy. Just go with me. Over time, what we're seeing is that brands and agencies want to get closer to publishers. I'm talking to Omnicom at the moment. We're hopefully receiving an RFP tomorrow, and they're going to sell us exactly that. They want access directly into a publisher's inventory. How do we solve that problem for them? Well, we'll find out when we actually respond to the RFP, but over time, everybody in the industry is seeing that that middle ground is very congested. Publishers want access to agencies, agencies want direct access to the publishers. The middle ground is a very congested place to be, so that's why we have to be very careful when we're talking to these people to make sure that we understand that and we get across the point that we know what we're doing in this space. And when we think about what we're doing in Europe at the moment, we've had some successes this year. You'll notice that the companies on this side of the equation are in a slightly smaller font than the companies on this side of the equation. These are on a bigger font. That's a subtle signal that what we're going after, we've closed businesses from small companies, and now we're going after business from bigger companies. I can't see if Brian's here, but that's the strategy, so as long as you've signed off on that, then that's good. But basically, some of these companies you may not have heard of, right? But they're doing interesting things, and we're now doing interesting things with them. So, for instance, BidStack was my first ever deal that I can win, my only ever deal that I can win, which I find frustrating. But they do in-game advertising. The first time we've done anything like that, they're the only company out there that's doing it. It's an interesting niche solution, but it doesn't necessarily scale. When we get across to the people that we're talking to now, people think about eBay. We all know eBay, big company, big opportunity, we've got many conversations with them. It could turn into something that's really fundamentally going to change the way that we do business. Omnicom, the same thing. An agency directly talking to publishers, building their own SSP, that could fundamentally change the way that we do business with them. Ozone is a new publisher co-op that started in the UK. Shane is now talking to publisher co-ops and trying to bring the idea of TrustX over to Europe. That's a big challenge. But that's the kind of thing that we have to do now, is think about the big challenges, not the little companies that we need to work with. It's also a bigger circle. Do you see that? That's called a transition. Wow. Thank you. That normally gets a laugh as well. You can't really read this, but I'm going to give you the general gist. Where we've been working with smaller companies, working on getting some new business revenue growing, it's tended to be with smaller companies, it's tended to be with ad tech. We all know that we need to change the game in terms of who we talk to, how we talk to them, and where we drive our business. When we're working down here, we're working at incremental gains. This is small pieces of business that will help us to generate exciting technology, but it won't necessarily generate huge amounts of revenue that we'd like to do. As we move forward, we're pushing our boundaries. We're talking more towards the primary players. So those primary players are the brands, the agencies, the publishers. Because they're the guys who control the cash. If you follow the cash, that's where you can have the biggest impact. As we move forward, I believe that we can become a platform for growth. We can be the company that changed ad tech again. We can be the guys who are actually driving the industry forward in a way that makes the most sense for the overall business. And that's where we're aiming for over the next year or two. So that's why we're kind of going after the bigger players now, the bigger businesses, because that's going to have the biggest impact on our overall business, and indeed the whole industry. Now, does anybody here like cricket? Thank you, one person. 2 people, look at that. Does anybody else know what cricket is? So you're aware of cricket, that's good. Cricket is a game played mostly in the former British Empire. It's played by about 6 different countries on a permanent basis. Anyway, it's known for fairness, it's known for trust, it's known for getting people involved, getting people outside. This is a cricket field. And I just thought that was interesting. Michael, as a new tagline for Iconweb, I thought of Iconweb. Anything else just isn't cricket. Take it or leave it. I never said marketing was my strong point. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for your attention. Thank you for the image of the sheep. Thank you for the success stories. And if you have any questions, throw things, shout things, stand up, or do what you usually do. We're very open to it. Thank you. No questions. My dream scenario. Thank you in that case. Enjoy the rest of your day, and if you do have any questions and you see us walking around, Niraj is quite friendly. He'll talk to you. He responds very well to small tomatoes being thrown at him.
Sorry, can you quickly tell us, in some of the experience, maybe Fitstack, maybe some of them with one at APAC, when we win, why do we win? And when we lose, why do you think we lose?
It's a very good question, and I wish I had a complete answer for you. I would say, in my experience, which is only over the last year, Bidstack we won because they had a very specific requirement that no one else could answer. And we were able to answer that question and just say, okay, you want to have advertising in-game? Not any other SSP can deliver that. They needed something custom, and that's why they came to talk to us in the first place. Where we haven't been successful is because there hasn't really been a point of differentiation. So, for instance, I had a long conversation with The Guardian. The Guardian's a pretty respected publisher. Sometimes they don't really know what they're doing. They will work with anybody who will bring them an extra pound. They have to work on a quarterly basis. They can't take the time to sit back and go, you know what, in a year's time we want to control everything. They couldn't do that. And actually, I believe that we lost the business to Index Exchange, who recently have been found out for bid caching and causing all kinds of problems, and maybe that's another conversation to have at some point. But I think at the time, they were persuaded by short-term revenue, and that's why we were not successful with that. Guys, do you want to take any others? Why we've won, why we haven't?
I would say in North America it's probably the same thing. I think where we offer differentiation, or where a client's looking for something different in the marketplace, I think we have, there's nobody else that can do what we do. So we're a really nice fit. I think where they've commoditized what we're doing down to a cost basis, what CPM or what percentage of media can we get down to? Can you beat DVM? We don't win in those. B, we shouldn't probably be having a conversation with those. So it becomes a vetting process thing, but that's what we're seeing also in the region.
Well, you're doing all the good answers. We win and lose like anything else, any type of business based on timing and opportunity. Pricing is always a factor, especially when you're in a cost-conscious market, but oftentimes people are not ready for our approach, or maybe our approach has never always been right for some of the conversations. So I think all our experience is getting better at asking the questions of the people we're talking to, exposing their pain points, what are their ambitions, are they worried about their job for 3 months, 6 months, a year, do they even have the ability to sell this upwards and downwards within organizations, especially the complexity of the companies we're dealing with. So pricing and opportunity and timing, I mean, it's not a perfect answer, but some of our conversations do take 16 months. And with us being, we take our knocks, we take our wins, and we do get a win we want to celebrate because it is sometimes a year plus of conversations of getting to that point where they're going to be successful.
You mind if I just add, I'm going to add something to that too. Vaughan made a great point that when it's planting seeds, at the end of the day, well, we're farmers, right? People say, oh, you go out and you hunt. You don't really hunt. It's not like you see a lion, you're gonna kill the lion. It's not there. You're planting seeds and eventually you're hoping the seeds will grow. And typically as a salesperson, you're planting 10, 15, 20 seeds for every one that may turn into something, right? So it's actually really frustrating as a farmer. What seeds are the right ones that will grow in the right soil, that'll, do the right things for you. So it's really frustrating in the marketplace to find out what the right ones are, I think is the first thing. And then I just think, to the timing, there's so many different factors, I think, that influence organizational structure. You could sell and get everybody to buy in, and then, oh, by the way, we got to go through procurement. Procurement goes through and says, oh, you don't have a certification, or you don't, and all of a sudden everything falls apart, right? So it tends to be a struggle, especially within the publishing world, where organizations are extremely complex. In how they're structured. So I would say that that's probably, a key challenge as well. Tim?
Yeah, Niraj mentioned that the sales cycle is notoriously long at Nagpal, sometimes a year or more. What are the key factors that lead to that long sales cycle, and what are we doing to try to shorten it?
Okay.
You could start.
I think now what's been helpful is having a product. So getting people to say, yes, we want to start working with this thing. It's not perfect, doesn't address all our needs, but it's a path forward to doing something really cool, interesting, customizable. It's starting to resonate a little bit. We'll hopefully have 3 very lightweight SSPs live, this year. And that's been for the first year, just figuring that approach out instead of just saying, oh, we're going to fly people in, it's going to cost you $20,000, and $20,000 in Indonesia is a lot of money. And so I think that's been one of the things. Getting better at asking questions and figuring out ahead of time if the right people have the ability to sign off on it, or are they just just trying to boost their own ego or farm for information. So that's one of the better ways of doing it.
I mean, your world and mine kind of cross over on the agency business, and I'm looking at agencies now and thinking about a point solution. How can I deliver a point solution that answers a very specific problem? I think where we've fallen down in the past is that we say we can fix any problem for you. Bring us more difficult problems, the more difficult the better. We love it. We love to solve that problem for you. But then we rely upon the customer telling us what the problem is instead of us presenting a solution. So I think there's a halfway house that we get to, which is finding that problem, presenting a solution, and not saying we can solve everything. And I think that will help to shorten that sales cycle because it's something very specific they can say yes to or no to, rather than, oh, maybe, which gets it nowhere. Right? So that's the way I think about it from the demand side. I think with publishers, having a point solution helps, but their businesses are so complex, we probably just need to understand a little bit better about how their businesses are structured before we even talk to them.
Yes. It's all of them. I think the biggest challenge, I think, is the product not being productized at the end of the day. So a lot of clients, and I'm fairly new to the organization, but in 6 months we've had lots of people come to us saying, what can you do for us? And we'd say, what do you need? And they're like, we're not sure. Can you tell us? It's got to be frustrating for an engineer if you have 10 different products you're creating and none of them are reusable. You're supporting a lot of different applications and solutions that aren't really scaled to grow past a single client. So I think we're getting much closer to a productized approach. I know that we're focusing within North America on specifically a certain set of opportunities, and outside of that, we don't want to change too many things outside of that. You could be really good at one thing or mediocre at 10. And I think, I'd rather be really good at one thing than, just, subpar at 10 other things. So that's really from a focus perspective, I think. And you tend to see things move a lot quicker if you have that focus, you know exactly what you're chasing down, and the team knows what we're building, so it's replicable.
Any more for any more?
And I do believe that the sales team does drink wine on yachts and shake hands and kiss babies, so that's my thought. I've seen you in Canada. No, I'm kidding.
None of the above is true. Thank you for your time, and like I said, if you have any further... Oh, you have a question, Vaughan. Fantastic. You just waiting? Hi. Okay. Good. So, thank you for your time, and grab us if you see us around, and it will all be at the party tomorrow night, so please feel free to say hello and tell us what you do and why you can make our lives better.
If you want to buy anything, I'll give you my business card.
So, thank you.